seconds. हाँ. यस प्रभु जी, आप शुरू कर सकते हैं.
ठीक है प्रभु जी. Despite Prabhupada's plans for preaching in Europe, obtaining permanent residency in the United States and Canada, printing his books, and starting a press, his life remained regulated and simple. He would give Srimad Bhagavatam lectures in the temple and daily see guests in his room, constantly thinking, writing, chanting, and speaking about Krishna and how to spread Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada was the driving force of a revolutionary movement. Yet he mostly stayed at home, spending much of his time alone or in simple domestic dealings with his servants. One quiet afternoon in Prabhupada's sitting room, Govinda Dasi was bringing Prabhupada his prasadam, and when Prabhupada spied a baby rat running across the floor, immediately Govinda Dasi set the tray of prasadam down and tried to catch the rat as it darted toward Prabhupada's desk. Getting up quickly from his seat, Prabhupada also joined excitedly in the chase. Then another rat appeared. When Harinam, visiting from San Francisco, heard the commotion, he came to the door and offered to help. Taking up a shoebox, he began chasing the rats, finally catching them both and letting them loose outside. Later,
Hare Krishna,
Prabhupada, yes,
sorry to
yes, Mata,
interrupt.
yes,
I think
Mataji.
I read this part, Prabhuji. I just scroll
Okay,
down. I,
तो कहाँ से
from
शुरू?
where, Mataji?
एक बार
From
स्क्रॉल
one
करके
one quiet afternoon, or
नहीं नहीं ये वाला शायद नीचे वाले तक काफी नीचे तक भी और पढ़ यहाँ यहाँ से वाइल वॉज इन यहाँ से पढ़ना है.
While Prabhupada was in Montreal.
why? While, okay.
हम्म.
While Prabhupada was in Montreal, many of his disciples from the United States came to visit him. They were serving on his behalf, some of them thousands of miles away, and the urge to see him would grow until it impelled them to travel to Montreal. Sometimes these visitors would be newcomers who had joined one of Prabhupada's temples and had heard about him from his disciples, but never see him, but had never seen him. Prabhupada was always happy, of course, when his disciples remained in their posts, executing their respective duties, but he was also glad when they came to visit him. Nandakishora. I walked into the room and Srila Prabhupada greeted me very enthusiastically with a smile and said, American Vaishnava. I paid obeisances, sat down, and we began to talk. I had heard that Krishna could be in the heart of every living entity at the same time, so I asked Prabhupada how it was possible. He began by saying, just try to understand. So I tried. I strained and squinted to show that I was really trying to understand. And Prabhupada continued. Just like the sun is over your head and mine, and is over the head of someone who may be 1,000 miles away, that is because the sun is great. Similarly, Krishna is so great that he is simultaneously in the hearts of all living entities. And I understood. He had said, try to understand. And because I was hearing, I did understand. I was trying to understand, and I was hearing from the pure devotee. As I was leaving his room, he waved his right hand in the air, sitting back in a very relaxed way, smiling. He said, chant Hare Krishna, chant Hare Krishna. Krishna Das. I had heard that Prabhupada was planning to travel abroad and that he wanted to take several devotees with him, and that whoever wanted to go should save his money. So I got a job with a jewelry firm. Then I had a vacation while Prabhupada was in Montreal. Uddhava and I were having our vacation at the same time, and we decided over breakfast one morning to see Prabhupada in Montreal. In 1 hour, we were packed, wearing suits. We hiked from San Francisco to New York in 3 days. When when we got to Montreal, Gaurasundara said, "Well, Prabhupada is about to have lunch. Would you care to join him?" We said yes. Uddhava and I went in, and Prabhupada was immediately very thankful that we had come so far to visit him. But as we had to lunch so late, there wasn't really enough prasadam for two guests. So Gaurasundara first served Prabhupada, and we sat there with our empty plates. Then Prabhupada asked, "What about their food?" Govinda Dasi went to get something for us, and Prabhupada said to me, "You're very thin. You look sickly. You should eat more." So he proceeded to take food off his plate and put it on my empty plate. And he told me to eat. He said I should eat 6 chapatis a day. He gave me a whole diet to follow so I could gain weight. During lunch, a mouse came into the room and Gauru Sundara captured it. Prabhupada joked about how the mouse had been a devotee in his past life and had come back in this life to eat prasadam off the floor. Afterwards, we paid our obeisances. I touched my head to Prabhupada's foot, and he got up and walked over and rubbed our heads. Jeffrey Hickey, Jagdish Das. When I entered Prabhupada's apartment, I got the most amazing feeling. Kirtananda Maharaj and Hegiriva were there talking to Prabhupada about New Vrindavan. They were saying that they had bought some land and Prabhupada was encouraging them. I just sat in the back and listened to what was going on. Prabhupada's presence was very strong. I felt small, and I had the feeling that he knew everything about me and that I could not pretend to be someone big. Although previously I had always thought of myself as being a little advanced, but in Prabhupada's presence I could pose as anything because I understood that he knew everything about me and could understand my mentality. So I just sat with my face turned downwards. Once in a while I would look up at him. I was in Prabhupada's room for about half an hour. I wanted to say something, but I did not know what to say. So at the end, while everyone was leaving, I bowed down and let the others leave first. Then as I was about to leave, I told Prabhupada that I was chanting 16 rounds daily and that I expected to get initiated later. He welcomed me to stay in the Montreal temple and I fumbled some reply. Vaikuntanath. I was in great anxiety because I had just returned from my draft board physically. But as soon as I walked into Prabhupada's room, all my anxiety completely melted. As soon as I came into his presence, I thought how wonderful he is. Spiritual truth became real in his presence. Shivananda. I had come to Montreal to visit Prabhupada, but Gaurasundara and Govinda Dasi did not want many devotees going with him on the morning walk. One morning I was out for a walk by myself when I met Prabhupada. He mentioned to me and said, "Come on." As we walked, I mentioned to Prabhupada that I had traveled in various places in Europe and all over America, and he said, "Oh yes, you must go these places and open some temples." At that time, the word was out that Prabhupada wanted some of his disciples to go to London to open a temple there. So, as I was walking along with Prabhupada, we were just about to cross the street. Prabhupada turned to me and said, "Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that one who is spreading my teachings of Bhagavad Gita to the devotees is the most dear to me, and there is never one who is more dear." Then Prabhupada added, "Our business is to become dear to Krishna." That started me thinking about opening a center somewhere. In the evenings, devotees and guests would crowd into Prabhupada's room to sit with him. Gaurasundara and Govinda Dasi would attempt to confine the devotees to Prabhupada's visiting hours, but their restraints were not very strong. Prabhupada himself would often override them. Prabhupada was more relaxed in his room than in the temple, and he would laugh and speak about many different things. Brahmananda. Prabhupada would just talk. Often there wouldn't be any questions, and he would just get on a topic and talk, sitting casually Sometimes it wouldn't even be directly about Krishna, but he would describe different things about life in India or some other topic. He would always make sure that everyone had some prasadam. One night he was explaining to a visitor that his disciples, these Americans, boys and girls, were taking up Krishna consciousness naturally, not artificially. He referred to his servant Gaurasundara. Actually, he is doing so many nice things for me all day long because he loves me. It is not artificial. Govinda Dasi. One time there was an elaborate discussion about whether trains were better than buses or buses were better than trains. Another time Prabhupada was talking about liquor, and I said, "Oh, Srila Prabhupada, whiskey tastes awful." He was shocked. He said, "Oh, you have tasted." He was surprised that I had tasted liquor. He talked in details about Bengal tigers and all sorts of other things. Most of the devotees were not so astute. Most of us were just recovering from being hippies and taking drugs, but everyone loved him very much. Actually, there was no fame, no name and fame. There was no money, there was no position. The center of our service, the motivating factor was simply love of Srila Prabhupada. Nanda Kishora. Prabhupada explained how he had first some seen snow when he had come to America. He said, "One day I looked out the window and I thought, oh, someone has taken time and thrown it all over." And then I looked up at the sky and thought, oh, they are they they are still throwing. And then he laughed. I could hardly believe he had never seen snowfall before. He was like a child. He said such things so beautifully, like an innocent child, that whatever doubt I had was just wiped away due to the beauty of his expression. Satyabhama. Prabhupada told a story about a man from Calcutta who could tell the make of any car just by hearing it. I think Prabhupada was making an important philosophical point, but I forget the point. Anyway, this man's friend wanted to test the other man's ability to judge cars just by their sound. So together they went and stood on a street corner in Calcutta. The friend blindfolded the other man, and as each car passed by, the man would identify that is a Cadillac, that is a Buick. Then a donkey came walking by, dragging some cans, and the man said, "Oh, that is a Ford." Krishnadas and Uddhava told Prabhupada about the San Francisco Rath Yatra, and they handed him a newspaper clipping. Prabhupada read the headline about San Francisco Paradise, Hail Hindu God Krishna. After nothing with pleasure, the large photo of devotee pulling the ropes of the 2-ton wagon on long haul to celebrate Rath Yatra festival. He handed the newspaper back to Krishnadas. Read it. After hearing the article, Prabhupada praised the devotees, especially Shyamasundara and Jayananda, for constructing an attractive cart and holding such a successful festival. Then Prabhupada began to talk of other successes within his new movement. He had heard reports that in San Francisco, Tamal Krishna had organized the devotees to go out and chant Hare Krishna every day, and that in one day they had sold 100 copies of Back to Godhead. Devotees in New York and Boston, he said, were also going out and chanting, distributing magazines, and collecting as much as $40 in a day. He told the disciples gathered in his room that they should all expect to perform public kirtan in the important cities of the world, taking mridangas and kartalas. They could perform kirtan anywhere and get the blessings of Lord Chaitanya. In this way, their numbers would increase. Prabhupada told them, if you want to live alone in a secluded place and practice yoga for your own personal advantage, that is very good. But if you want to help others by spreading Krishna consciousness, that is far better. Prabhupada said that although a Krishna conscious person is not anxious on his own behalf, he is anxious for those who are not Krishna conscious, the mass of people who simply engage in sense gratification within a civilization of illusion. Quoting the great Acharya Jiva Goswami, Prabhupada said that a devotee who chooses to sit in Vrindavan and chant Hare Krishna should make only one or two disciples, but a missionary who preaches Krishna consciousness all over the world should make as many disciples as possible. So you are being initiated. Prabhupada addressed the devotees in his room. Therefore, you should make it your responsibility and duty to spread this message, to follow the principle strictly and become pure Vaishnavas and preach all over the world. Don't worry about where you will sleep or eat. Krishna will see to all these things. You simply have to become sincere in service. That's all. Just be sincere. Govinda Dasi raised her hand. Prabhupada, she asked, what does it mean exactly to surrender? Surrender, Prabhupada replied, is to know that I am nothing. As Prabhupada spoke, Govinda Dasi, accustomed to taking dictation, wrote down the answer while others devotees, some seated on the floor around Prabhupada's desk, some standing in the doorway, listened attentively. I should know, Prabhupada continued. I am less than the stool of a hog. And Krishna, you are everything. That is very difficult. We can find millions of Isaac Newtons and Einsteins, but one very rare soul might be surrendered to Krishna because it is very difficult. So, as long as you are thinking that he is more learned than me and I am more learned than him, that is material. You must know that you are nothing and surrender. A new boy who had been attending Srila Prabhupada's classes asked, why is it that one time I feel this way, like you say, surrendered, but at other times I forget? Prabhupada, that is Maya. That is our battle with Maya. We are in Maya's kingdom. So we have to fight. It is like an ocean, birth and death. There are so many universes and so many species of life, and we are transmigrating birth after birth. It is like you are standing on the edge of a boat, and just a little shove, and you may fall into the ocean. Then you then you do not know where you are going, here or there. So it is like that. If you want to keep back even 1% to surrender, but if you want to keep back even 1% to surrender all but 1%, then you have to stay here. Krishna is so strict. If you have any desire for material enjoyment, you have to remain just 1% may take millions of years. So you have to surrender everything. Krishna consciousness is already there within you and within everyone, but it has to be invoked. It's like a match, and if you rub it, fire comes out. And that rubbing process is chanting. So we have to inject Krishna consciousness into the ear, and we have to go on injecting. When Wherever you go, you have to chant, and without any motive. Gaura Sundara brought in a plate of cut fruit, which Srila Prabhupada distributed to each person. It was late, but Prabhupada continued speaking. People want to go on asking God for bread, but as soon as there is bread elsewhere, they won't go to church. But if you teach people to love God, that they will never forget. Prabhupada smiled. Finally, the devotees left him satisfied. They would see him in the temple in the morning. Montreal Temple, established now for a year and a half, occupied a former bowling alley on the third floor of a building near McGill University. Although the gutters on either side of the 8 bowling lanes had been filled with wood, thus creating a smooth, level floor, the 8 hardwood lanes were still prominent. An altar and Vyasasan stood against the wall, and a temporary wall partitioned off the men's quarters. There was also a kitchen and separate quarters for the women. With difficulty, Prabhupada would daily climb the 2 flights of stairs and enter the spacious temple room. On the day of his arrival in Montreal, several devotees had carried him up the stairs in palanquin, but but the winding staircase made them made that too difficult to do daily. So Prabhupada chose to walk. The original Montreal devotee was Janardhana, a Canadian attending McGill University. Janardhan wore a beard and long hair. even after his initiation, and lived in an apartment with his wife, who was staunchly opposed to Krishna consciousness. Acknowledging Janardhana as an intellectual, Prabhupada had written him long letters answering his philosophical doubts and requesting that he write essays and books on Krishna consciousness. When the temple had first opened, the McGill Daily had given Janardhana a full page to introduce Swami Bhakti, Vedanta, and Krishna consciousness. The headlines had read Mind Expansion Under Spiritual Guidance. Montreal's French daily newspaper, Le Lovinio Samedi interviewed Janardhana and published an article. They claim that Hindu god Krishna is the father of Christ and that the inhabitants of the moon are invisible. About a dozen members had joined the Montreal temple, but so far they had done little to spread Krishna consciousness in Montreal. They had spent most of their energy maintaining themselves spiritually and financially. Although they had held some public kirtans at the 1967 World's Fair, mostly they had concentrated on transforming the bowling alley, cleaning, cooking for Krishna, and meeting together for classes and kirtans. When Srila Prabhupada saw Janardhana's academic studies distracting him from temple management, he asked Janardhan to appoint a temple commander. One night, when Prabhupada came to the temple for his lecture, as soon as he sat on Vyasasana, he looked out to Janardhan and asked, "So have you found a temple commander yet?" "Oh no," Janardhan replied, "not yet." Prabhupada then turned toward the altar and beheld the deities. "That's all right," he said. "Lord Jagannath is the temple commander. We are his servants." One evening in the temple, as Prabhupada concluded his lecture about Prahlad Maharaj, he asked if there were any question. Himavati, one of the women disciples, raised her hand. "Prabhupada, yes." Himavati, Prahlad Maharaj was such a great devotee that he said, "Nothing is mine," but then why does he say, "My God"? How could God become his? Why does he say that, Prabhupada? Then what shall he say? Himavati, I don't understand. How can he say it? If you understand nothing belongs to you, then how can you say God is mine, Prabhupada? Krishna is the Lord of everyone. Therefore, everyone can say, "My Lord." That does not mean if somebody says, "My Lord," God becomes monopolized. You are speaking on the platform of monopolizing mine. But God is never monopolized. He is everyone's. So everyone has the right to say, "My God, my Lord." In the material sense, when I say it is my wife, that means she is not any other's wife. But God is not like that. I can say my God, but you can also say my God. He can say my God. Everyone can say my God. That is the absolute mine. Krishna says all these living creatures are my parts and parcels. Maima Vamsho Ma- Mama means my. So why the living creatures shall not say my God? Do you follow? Krishna says you are mine. Why shall I not say, Krishna, you are mine? Your husband says you are mine. Why shall you not say to him, you are mine? But don't take it in the material sense. In the material sense, as soon as I say this is mine, then it belongs to no one else. It is my property. But Krishna is not like that. So you can say Krishna is mine. There is no harm. Rather, if anyone wants to possess something as his, that position should be Krishna's. That is the ultimate conception of mine. That is the perfection of the word mine. So this is quite nice, quite fit. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, "He is mine and I am his." Krishna says, so this is not wrong. And what is your idea? That because everything belongs to Krishna, therefore I shall not say mine. That is your idea? Himavati, I didn't understand this, that Krishna is the Lord. So my Lord is everyone else Lord? Prabhupada, yes. Himavati, he is the controller, and that's why he is mine, Prabhupada. He is mine, he is yours, everyone's, that's all. Himavati, I can understand, Prabhupada, that's all. Rukmini, I feel so far away from you, when you are not here, Prabhupada. What is that? I cannot follow. Janardhan, Janardhan, she is saying she felt so far away from you when you were not here. Prabhupada, oh, that you should not think. There are two conceptions, the physical conception and the vibration conception. The physical conception is temporary, and the vibration conception is eternal. Just like we are relishing the vibration of Krishna's teaching, so my vibration is also present. As soon as we chant Hare Krishna or chant Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavad, so Krishna is present immediately by vibration. He is absolute. Therefore, vibration is more important than physical presence. When you feel separation from your spiritual master, you just try to remember his words and his instructions, and you feel not separation. You feel like he is with you. So we should associate with by the vibration, not by physical presence. That is real association. Shabda anavritti, by sound. Just like we are touching Krishna immediately by sound. So we should give more stress on this sound vibration, either of Krishna or of the spiritual master. Then we will feel happy and no separation. When Krishna departed from this world, at that time Arjun was overwhelmed with sorrow and he began to remember the instructions of Bhagavad Gita. Then he was pacified. Immediately he began to remember the teachings which was taught to him on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and he was pacified. Krishna was his constant friend. So when the Lord went to his abode, Arjun was feeling overwhelmed, but he began to remember his teachings. So whenever we shall feel separation, the best thing is to remember the teaching. Then it will be very nice. Is that clear, Rukmani? Yes. One of the girls asked Prabhupada, will you be our father eternally? Will you always be our spiritual father eternally? Joking, Prabhupada said, yes, I think so. Then he quoted a verse, Chakudana dilo ye janme janme Prabhu se. But he said, Janme janme Pita se. The one who has opened my eyes, he is my father, life after life. Prabhupada was concerned about the weak financial condition of the Montreal temple. Although some of the devotees were employed, their work wasn't very auspicious. One disciple had a job at the No Sage Spring Factory, which Prabhupada called Ugra Karma, bitter, unwholesome labor. When Nanda Kishore told Prabhupada about his job as a busboy in a restaurant, Prabhupada replied, oh, a blind uncle. Nanda Kishoras looked puzzled. Prabhupada told him the story of a boy who had no uncle. One day, a blind man came to the boy's home and said, I will be your uncle. Well, the boy replied, a blind uncle is better than no uncle. But when Nanda Kishore told Prabhupada the details of his work and that he was sometimes cooking meat, Prabhupada remarked, oh, but not so blind. Should we stop here or continue?
Prabhuji, we can read till 9:05 and maybe 3 more minutes and then we will stop.
Okay.
Mm.
The question of financing the Montreal temple puzzled Prabhupada and he carefully analyzed the situation. There were two paths of Krishna consciousness. He said, one for those who were renounced, eating fruits from the trees and living in caves, and the other for those who were married and honestly employed, like Krishna's friend Arjun. Both paths were good. But the question for Prabhupada was which path his disciples should take if they attempted to take the path of ecstatic ascetics like Shukdev Goswami, they would probably remain hippies, and Prabhupada wanted many big centers with respectable guests coming to take prasadam. Yet, if to maintain such temples, the devotees had to engage in Ugra Karma, then who would preach? It was a puzzle. I have either to stop this Brahmanical system, Prabhupada said, or I have to have Brahmana's work. He thought of starting his own business. He had a little capital and there was organization. Then he thought of enlisting the support of the Indians in Montreal. Montreal had a large Indian community and families were already attending the Sunday feast at the temple. Of those who came forward to meet Prabhupada. The most promising was young Gopal Khan Khanna, a business major at McGill University. Although raised in an Orthodox Hindu family, Gopal knew little of the Vaishnava philosophy. The day before Srila Prabhupada had arrived in Montreal, Gopal had received an invitation card from a devotee. Because for the past year Gopal had been sincerely wanting to understand God, he had been interested. In this spiritual search, he had been attending services at a Hindu temple in Toronto as well as visiting various other churches and temples. He had given up meat eating and smoking. On coming to the temple and seeing the excitement of the devotees in preparing for Prabhupada's arrival, Gopal had asked to help. So one of the devotees had instructed him to help clean Prabhupada's apartment. Prabhupada had taken an interest in Gopal, who, although he had never met a sadhu before and did not know what to think at first, respected Prabhupada. A friend of Gopal's, a Mr. Mukherjee from Calcutta, also began attending Prabhupada's lecture. Mr. Mukherjee, who claimed to have spiritual knowledge, told Gopal that although he had touched the feet of many Indian sadhus throughout India, never had he met anyone as saintly as Prabhupada. Gopal took his friend's endorsement of Prabhupada's very seriously, and soon he was attending all the lectures in the temple and chanting Hare Krishna on his beats, acting like a regular devotee. He would usually be the only Indian to remain through the kirtan and lecture in the temple. Then afterwards, he would stay and have hot milk with the devotees returning home around 9:30. Associating with the devotees and being of the same age as they, Gopal automatically included himself among the intimate disciples who regularly visited Prabhupada at his apartment. Prabhupada asked Gopal about his family and background in India and encouraged him to take up Krishna consciousness. When Gopal told Prabhupada that he had been chanting Om, Prabhupada explained that by itself Om was incomplete. If he wanted to chant Om, Prabhupada said that he should chant Om Krishna. One night, Gopal was present as Prabhupada discussed the financial problems of the Montreal temple. Although the temple rent was only $150 and expenses were minimal, the devotees were struggling. At one point in the discussion, Prabhupada turned to Gopal and asked, "So, Gopal, what is your solution to this financial problem?" Guessing that Prabhupada might be hinting for him to contribute money, Gopal said he didn't have a solution. Prabhupada lectured at a nearby Christian school and Gopal and his friend Mr. Mukherjee attended. When after the kirtan and lecture, Prabhupada asked if there were any questions. Mr. Mukherjee raised his hand and stood up, and to the shock of the devotees, began insulting Prabhupada. It is not a fact that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Mr. Mukherjee said before the hall filled with Christian students and ministers. You should not speak like this in a church. Why do you say that Krishna is the Supreme and that we should surrender to him? Prabhupada remained calm, although the attending devotees, looking furiously at Mr. Mukherjee, could barely restrain themselves. Prabhupada didn't even speak. He simply called on someone else in the audience and allowed the unpleasant event to pass. Some days later, Prabhupada asked Gopal about Mr. Mukherjee, who had not come by recently. To Gopal's surprise, Prabhupada asked to see Mr. Mukherjee again. Gopal, considering Mr. Mukherjee too envious and blasphemous, advised Prabhupada against it. No, it does not matter, Prabhupada said. I must have done something against him in my past life, and now he has taken his revenge. Please call him. Gradually, some of the Indian visitors responded
Prabhuji,
to.
I think,
Yes,
yeah, we can
okay,
take a
Prabhuji.
break
Fine.
here. Uh,
Yes.
I mean, we are at a very interesting, yeah, context. So, Gopal, introduction of Gopal is none other than Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj. So,
This
exactly,
Gopal is Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj.
yes,
Okay, very nice.
because yeah, Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj was an investment banker in Montreal.
Hmm.
so before he became a full-time devotee, so I was just thinking that exactly at the time when Prabhupada was thinking there are no funds, how to bring up this temple into action. So Krishna makes Prabhupada to meet Gopal, yeah, who will become Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, and the way he built up so many temples across. So yeah, so we are at a very interesting phase here. And
Very nice, Prabhuji.
mm,
Yeah,
yes,
thank you, Prabhuji, for this wonderful
thank you for reading,
org.
Prabhuji. Yeah. Any
Yeah,
points that you wanted to highlight in this?
yeah. I think I felt um, the dealings of Prabhupada with his disciple, which is always very compassionate. So in this
Yes,
text
Prabhuji.
also, I found that Prabhupada was very personal with his
Yes, Prabhuji.
disciples, and doesn't get when something comes up like this, Mr. Mukherjee's shouting. He was always peaceful, and
Hmm.
he always knew what to say to whom at what time, and he
Yes,
knew how to make the best out of it.
yes, Prabhuji, correct. Yeah,
Yes,
yes,
Prabhuji.
yes. Gaur Bhagwan Prabhu, you wanted to add something?
Hare Krishna Puji. Yes, Puji, this was very nice part, especially at the last part. I liked when narration about early days of Gopal Krishna Maharaj came.
Yes.
Yeah, it was from the beginning when Prabhupada went to for his stay in Montreal temple. Yeah, all the difficulties with the how devotees were managing still in such a difficult situation, the temple affairs. And it was also nice to hear how enthusiastically some devotees came from so far from San Francisco, just doing hitchhiking.
Yes.
And Prabhupada, it must be many many thousands of kilometers that they managed. Also, this conversation in his room, it was written that he would talk on many different topics, wide variety range of topics, how the life is in India. So he was, where he was, everyone must be feeling very connected with Srila Prabhupada on these meetings. And the special that question of surrender, he
Yes,
gave
exactly.
an
Yeah.
elaborate answer, what does it mean. And so also in the morning walks, many he was encouraging Gaur I forgot the name, Gaur Sundar Prabhu, I think, who opened the temple in the later in the London. So this was all its inspiration in during this time, as I feel that later sometime they got so much encouraged that they successfully opened nice temple movement in UK. Overall it was very wonderful to hear, and looking forward about maybe some more pastimes of Gopal Krishna Maharaj maybe also coming.
Yes.
Excited
Yes,
to.
Prabhuji. Yes, I think the one interesting point which I had was when foreign devotees, and then the devotees from America, when they asked some very basic questions about Krishna to Prabhupada, Prabhupada was also answering it in a very basic way. And the interesting part was none of the devotees or his Prabhupada's disciples did not question. They understood because it is coming from a pure devotee. But here, when we see from people like Mr. Mukherjee, who is from an Indian background, questions Prabhupada that Krishna is not the supreme personality. So these are like, I mean, two extremes. So coming also from an Indian background, it's so difficult for someone to accept the absolute truth. So, and the way Prabhupada also handled the situation, it was, yeah, it's a lesson for, yeah, all of us.
True, Prabhuji. Yeah, Vaishnava is so much tolerant. This is the real example.
Yes, Prabhuji, correct. Yes, Prabhuji. So, yeah, so we will end it here and we will continue
Yes, Prabhuji.
on Monday. Yeah. So, have a nice long weekend, Prabhujis.
Hare Krishna. Yeah.
Hare
We
Krishna.
should
Hare
also-
Krishna.
Hare
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyo vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namah. Antakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Śrīla
Jai.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.